My Lords, I have great pleasure to follow the noble lady Baroness Thornhill, who I'm not going to say anything more on Amendment 274A because the case has just clearly been overwhelmingly comprehensively made for that amendment. I'm just going to briefly focus on Amendment 208 and the final amendment in this group, something of an alphabet soup. First of all, on the role of SMEs and small sites in local plans. I've come across many cases where I've been really pleased to see that Green councillors around the country have been able to look at that classic development we see now, a new block of what will almost invariably be labelled as luxury flats. And in the basement it has one single, fairly extensive shop, which then becomes one of a handful of supermarket chains. One more piece of dominance of our economy of what is already an oligopoly in our food supply. But what's sometimes has been able to be done, and I think should be encouraged and supported through the development of local plans, is if you divide that space up into three, what you can do if that space is divided up into three, you can have a small independent greengrocer. You might have a small independent hardware come homeware shop that stocks that kind of thing that you suddenly find yourself really needing and can be almost impossible to find in our residential retail deserts where you just see the same identical supermarkets again and again. And maybe the third one of those division shops could be something we urgently need to see. And I was at an event with the University of Manchester talking about scaling up the green transition earlier today. A repair shop, a place where when something's broken, you can go and have expert help to fix it instead of just throwing it out into the rubbish. The circular economy in action. That's the kind of thing that simple, clear thinking about what we need in our communities, not just building homes, but building communities, can really come to work. And I just also want to draw on the work of my noble friend Baroness Jones of Moulscombe back in her London Assembly days. She produced then a report in 2015, The End of Industry in London. And back then, in the previous 7 years to that, London had lost the equivalent of 750 football pitches of land of sites where many small industrial businesses were based. That was in a situation where flipping industrial land into residential land could see a doubling of the price. Now, I would be very surprised if we haven't seen a continuation or even an acceleration of that trend in the time since that report. And we need those small independent businesses. We need them as part of our thriving, strong local economies. And just finally, in terms of 504GJA, if I've got that right, I think this is something that's really important and is in a piecemeal kind of way already being done. Here in London, there is the London rogue landlord and agent checker. But Green London Assembly member Sian Berry did some research on this and found that only 3% of tenants had actually used it, although 20% of tenants had complaints that were relevant to it. And I think if we had a situation where this was expected, everyone knew wherever they moved in the country that they would have this resource would be there for them, something that can be publicised around the country, something that's built into the requirements for all local authorities. That would be a really useful and practical tool that we know how much private renters are being exploited. And I've just come out of the economic crime bill and the problems of fraud and the way in which people are literally being robbed of cash, things like their rental deposit. These are issues that we really need to tackle. This is a practical step towards that.
My Lords,